بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. How many people did the Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum La ilaha illa anta yesterday? Okay, good. So for you, you're keeping it up. Bismillah, we'll start with that inshallah, based on Imam al-Kattani's dream. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum La ilaha illa anta Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum لا إله إلا أنت يا حي يا قيوم 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 لا إله إلا أنت. سبحانك. الحمد لله. بسم الله. the other night we basically were looking at the life of Imam al-Ghazali, and inshallah what I'd like to do now is look at his intellectual and spiritual contribution specifically, and then the Ihya and what the importance and the centrality of the Ihya Ulum ad-Din is to this ummah. The first thing is that Imam al-Ghazali's life is clearly two distinct parts, or you could put it into three. His education, which goes up to about the age of 27, and then the period that he spent with Nizam al-Mulk in his entourage, and then his appointment in the Nizamiyya in Baghdad. So this is the second period. So his primary period, which is his education, which begins, obviously, he's orphaned with his brother Ahmed. He's trains with some very formidable teachers, and ending with the great Shafi'i and Usuli scholar Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni. And then he goes and impresses the minister of the Seljuks, Nizam al-Mulk, and he eventually is appointed a lecturer and then a head lecturer at the Nizamiyya in Baghdad, which is at that time probably the most prestigious university in the world. It would be akin today to being a senior lecturer at Yale or Oxford, something like that. But unlike today, when you have certain people that are well known, like Stephen Hawking is a good example of somebody who has the chair of physics there. I think it's Newton's chair. What's that? Newton's chair. So somebody like Hawkins is a genius in one area. I mean, he might be very educated in a lot of different areas. He probably is. He's probably very well read in literature and things like that, because English intellectuals tend to be. But the area that he has written in and that he's known for is cosmology and physics and higher mathematics. Certainly one of the great intellectual geniuses of the 20th and the 21st century, and recognized as such. It's rare for intellectuals in our age to have that type of celebrity. You have certain intellectuals, public intellectuals, like Noam Chomsky is a good example. And Noam Chomsky is an example of somebody who's a polymath. He's very adept in several different areas, but he's known, and his genius is recognized, particularly in linguistics. People, and in politics, there's a real split. Some people love him and some people hate him. But he's a public intellectual and an activist as well, which is quite unusual for a lot of the public intellectuals. And then you have in our age what I would call intellectual Ronins. And the Ronins were Japanese samurai who lost their feudal lords and in battles, but they survived, and they would go and basically they were like have sword will travel. They were for hire to people, and they would go and fight for anybody who would pay them, like mercenaries. So we have intellectual Ronins like that, and I think somebody like Christopher Hitchens is a good example of that, who shows some idealism when he was younger. He was a leftist, and then at a certain point makes a complete about-face and is pretty much the highest bidder. Although, I think, to be fair to him, because I don't like to be unfair, and I've read enough of Hitchens, because I actually have read some of the books and enjoyed some of them, but to be fair to him, he does have certain principles that he does stand by. I wouldn't say he was a completely unprincipled person. I don't think that would be fair to him. And I think in his mind, like in the minds of most of us, we have very ingenious ways of justifying our positions and how we present ourselves. And the mind is extraordinarily capable of deluding an individual to such a degree that it's obvious for everybody around him except the person. And that's how amazing delusion and delusional states are. And Imam al-Ghazali has a lot to say about that. So, but it is not usual in our culture right now to have the type of celebrity that Imam al-Ghazali had. The only, I think, analogous type of celebrity would be that of very, very high-profile actors who are also activists and intellectual to whatever degree. There's people out there that everybody knows, and then you have in the music industry, because in Western culture, the idea of ihsan, of really doing something with excellence, has been reduced to sports and entertainment. There's not a lot of, I mean, obviously it's not fair to grossly make that as a blanket statement, because there are a lot of areas where there's still itqan and ihsan, and certainly I would prefer to fly British Airways because I know the engines are made by Rolls-Royce than, say, Mali Air or Air Afrique, that I know buy old planes that were used in the West for about 20 years, and then they sell them to those countries. So I would certainly prefer to travel on a plane, although sometimes you wonder, because a lot of those funny little airlines actually say Bismillah and Tawakkalna ala Allah before they begin, so, and they need to more than the other ones. So, and I've been on those planes, so I know how that works. I was on a Mauritanian airline once, and when the plane took off, a couple of the seats just broke. Literally, people just fell back. So, I would say that Imam al-Ghazali, his celebrity was like one of these incredibly well-known people today. But he wasn't just known for one thing, like Stephen Hawking, for instance, or Dawkins, or one of those people. He was known for so many different things, and that's one of the most extraordinary things about him. In his first period he's writing early on, as he's writing while he was still a student, but in his first period, his books can be divided into 4 categories. He writes books that are tools, and these are called al-ulum al-ala. They're the tools of knowledge. So he writes books, for instance, he writes in logic, and he's very interested in logic, and logic is important to him. And Ibn Taymiyyah, who was also a great logician, and to such a degree that his famous book, Ar-Raddu ala al-Mantiqiyin, Refutation of the Logicians, is not an attack on logic per se, but on certain aspects of logic. But Ibn Taymiyyah was a logician, and what he finds reprehensible in Imam al-Ghazali's position is not that he was a logician, but that he deemed logic fard kifaya. He considered logic was one of the necessary sciences for a scholar, especially a mujtahid, to master, and that comes out of the school that he was in, that these were great logicians, Imam al-Juwayni, people like that. And obviously the mutakallimun also, logic became part of ilm al-kalam and syllogisms. But I think what Imam al-Ghazali shows very clearly in his books on logic, that the Qur'an uses reasoning, that there is a lot of reasoning in the Qur'an, and he has a book, Al-Qistas al-Mustaqim, which is the upright standard, is a book of Quranic logic. It is teaching you logic using the syllogisms and the enthymemes in Qur'an. So Imam al-Ghazali argues that this is a Quranic science. It's not simply a Greek science, it's a Quranic science. Aristotle identified logic, but people were not illogical before Aristotle. He just identified certain tools that people were doing naturally in their reasoning. Like Socratic reasoning is using Aristotelian logic, but Aristotle just pointed out what exactly he was doing, and so that other people could do the same thing, not intuitively or inspirationally, but by training. And so he writes books in logic. And then he has books that are designed for fiqh and usul al-fiqh. So he writes in usul, and his mankhul and the mustasfa are very important usuli books, especially the mustasfa. And then he writes in fiqh itself. So he's a Shafi'i scholar of absolute extraordinary capabilities, and his teacher was one of the great Shafi'i scholars of all time. So he writes al-Basit, al-Wajiz. He writes the Khulasa, which is a very important book in Shafi'i fiqh. And he has his own ijtihadat, so he's not always in agreement with the dominant school, or in kalam for that matter. He's not a pure Ash'ari. He doesn't always agree with the Ash'aris, and he also says things that some of the Ash'aris considered to be too far out, and that was one of the criticisms that some of the people had about him. And then he writes also in the rudud, which are refutations. He was very preoccupied with refuting the esotericists. And the esotericists were batini, they're called the batiniya. And the particular esotericism that was predominant in his time and place was that of the Ismailis. And so he wrote some refutations of the Ismailis, Faisal al-Tafriqa and Mustadhari, and other books, and letters also. And then the other area is the philosophers. And he wrote one book just explaining philosophy, which is almost like philosophy for dummies. It's Maqasid al-Falasifa. And then his famous book, Tahafut al-Falasifa. And in fact, there's a Christian, I don't know, he's an Arab Christian, Antonius Karam, who actually argues that Imam al-Ghazali is the cause of the fall of Islam, and the Arabs, because he destroyed philosophy. And that's not really fair to say that. First of all, you can't put the fall of anything on one individual, certainly not a civilization. But Imam al-Ghazali did not destroy philosophy per se, and there is a strong argument that he is actually a philosopher. And there are people that actually argue that he's actually much more sophisticated, and there's a whole hidden Ghazali in his writings. There's a strong case to be made for that, and people have made that. Ibn Tufayl is one of them. The great Andalusian philosopher argues that Imam al-Ghazali is actually a philosopher, and what he's trying to do is bring back philosophy to religion, because he says he's trying to convince religious people to become more philosophical and to try to convince philosophers to become more religious. That's really his goal. And it's there. I think there's a strong argument for that. And my own teacher, Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayya, really feels that one of the reasons for so much misunderstanding and confusion is the loss of the philosophical training, because philosophical training is important. It's central to a civilization. You have to have people that can think philosophically. And some of the most influential people in the West, as you know, are actually trained philosophers, and they have massive impact on how the West thinks. A good example of that is somebody like Joseph Nye, or Kennedy, the fall of civilizations, historian philosopher like Ibn Khaldun. So that's another area. And then the area that is central to his teaching and becomes his predominant obsession after his transformation, after his crises. And this is the third, or you could look at the second phase of his life if you want, the pre-crisis and post-crisis phase. In the second phase of his life, he begins with the Ihya Ulum ad-Din. And he writes that in the first couple of years of his retreat, after he's abandoned the world, really. And the Ihya, what's important to understand about the Ihya is he wrote it with the intention of giving the Ummah a book that
in Christianity, in classical Christianity, it could only be compared to the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas, which is the foundation of the Catholic Church. What he was trying to do was really give a Summa Islamica, a Summa Islamica, a book that, beside the Qur'an, would be enough for an educated Muslim. And there are ulama, some consider them hyperbolic in their statements, but there are ulama that have argued, and the Ba'alawi are certainly one group that would argue this from Yemen. There are ulama that have argued the Ihya is all you need as a book for your journey back to God. And so Imam al-Ghazali's Ihya is, the importance of it is absolutely phenomenal, and it really becomes a central book, despite the fact that it was burned in Andalusia. It was burned outside the Masjid of Qurtuba. Ibn Hamdin, who was one of the Andalusian scholars, burnt it. Another famous Moroccan scholar burnt it and actually made Tawbah. The story that's related is that the Prophet ﷺ came to him in a dream and actually had Imam al-Ghazali whip him. So he apologized afterwards. They were bothered by a statement that he made in the Kitab al-Tawheed wa Tawakkul, the book of divine unity and reliance upon God, which is Laysa fi imkan abda' min makan. A lot's been written about it. Imam al-Ghazali himself wrote about it. And it's a very sophisticated, intriguing, and complicated statement. But that bothered a lot of people. And also Ajaib al-Qalb, which I talked about the other day for those that were there, the 21st book, a lot of people were bothered by statements that he made about the ruh and the nature of the ruh. So as for the hadith, the other criticism about the hadith, Ibn Kathir says that the Ihya is a great book. He was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. He said it was a great book, one of the most extraordinary books. And he mentions the weakness of the hadith in the book. And he said you'll find in there manakir, gharaib, and he says mawdu'at. But then he says, but it's well known that this is not really a big deal in books of that ilk. In other words, books of tarbiyah, that aren't books of the ahkam, so to speak, like books of fiqh, the ulama are much easier. In the same way they're much easier in seerah. Seerah is the weakest form of knowledge in the Islamic tradition. There are many stories in the seerah that some of them don't even have isnad, but they're still told because they engender love in the heart for the Prophet ﷺ, and because they fill in the gaps of the seerah, and they are there, and they were transmitted, and they don't go against anything in the religion. So if a hadith goes against the religion, then clearly it's rejected. But if it's weak, and it's, I've likened it to a D or a C. A D or a C is not thrown out. You don't throw out a D or a C paper. It passes. But it's not an A or a B, so you're not going to use it as your standard or model in a classroom. So Sahih al-Bukhari is A and A+, and Sahih Muslim A and A+, and maybe some A minuses. And then you get into the other hadiths, and you get A's and B's, and then B's and C's, and then you start getting into really weak collections. And a lot of the books of Raghaib or Fada'il, which are the books enticing people to do good deeds and actions, have weak hadiths in them, and that's part of the tradition. So that was not, in the early period, that was not a big deal to a lot of people. And I mentioned also the other day that ulama have said that they were also working with a different set of hadiths. A lot of the hadiths were destroyed. Only recently some completely unknown hadiths that were in the Musnad were discovered in Egypt that aren't even in any of the printed editions of the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. There was some hadiths from the Musannaf Abdul Razak that were discovered in Yemen about 10 years ago that weren't in the Musannaf that's printed, or the Musannafat. A lot of hadith work is still there to be done. So this idea somehow that because we don't have any specific source for it, to say that it's it's not, it has no basis, is a dangerous thing to do. And that's what Imam al-Ghazali, the people of adab with him usually say things like, "Lam ajid lahu asla," I didn't find any source for this. Or, "Lam aqif alayhi," I couldn't find this. But to say, "La asla lahu," is a very difficult thing to do, because it means you know every single hadith. And there's a famous story of Imam al-Zuhri. It's actually one of my favorite stories of the ulama, because Imam Zuhri was one of the greatest muhaddithin of his time. He's a source for many hadiths in the Sahih collection of Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. And he was in the masjid in Medina. He was Imam Malik's teacher, but he was in the masjid in Medina, and Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi mentions this in his book Aridat al-Ahwadi, which is a sharh of Imam Tirmidhi, in the hadith from Aisha, which is in Tirmidhi, that Aisha said that the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to give the taslim, كان يسلم تسليمة واحدة, that he would go out of his prayer with only one taslima. He would just say, "Assalamu alaikum." And that's the Maliki madhab. And the Malikis don't just take it from that hadith, which is weak. It's a weak hadith from Aisha. But in the sharh, Qadi Abu Bakr wants to prove that it's from the amal of Ahl al-Madinah, which to Malik is mutawatir. It's the highest form of transmission. It's as good as a hadith or a verse in the Qur'an to him, if all the ulama in Medina are agreed upon it. And so Zuhri sees a man give two taslimas. And so when he finishes his prayer, he says, "Min ayna laka hatan taslimatan?" Where did you get these two taslima from? And he says, he said, "An fulan, an ibn Mas'ud, anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, idha kharaja min salatihi, sallama taslimatain." So he gives him the hadith with the sanad. And as Zuhri looks at him, he says, "I've never heard that hadith." And the man says to him, "أحط بحديث رسول الله كله." Do you know all the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ? He said, "La." He said, "أحط بثلثي." Do you know 2/3? He said, "La." He said, "أحط بنصف." Do you know half of them? He said, "نعم." He said, "طيب اجعله في النصف الذي لم تحط به." Okay, put it in the half that you don't know. And the nice thing about that story is it said, ضحك الزهري, that Imam Zuhri laughed. So he himself was acknowledging that is the case. And Imam Malik, when al-Mahdi wanted to يحمل الناس على الموطأ, he wanted to force the people to follow the Muwatta, and he said to Imam Malik, I want to make everybody, I'm going to write your book, copy it out, send it to all my governors, and force people to follow what's in it. And Imam Malik said, "La tafa'al," don't do that, because the Sahaba tafarraqu fil bilad. They split, they went all over. And he said, people are on what they learned from those people. And so he said, "Utruk an-nas ala ma hum alayh." Leave people on what they're on, because if you go trying to force people to do things that they don't know, and leave the things that they know, then you'll cause fitan. And this is one of the great wisdoms of Imam Malik, and this is something a lot of modern Muslims don't seem to understand, that because you don't know something, or that's not the way you do it, doesn't mean that's not the way it can be done. And that's one of the beauties of Islam, and the ways in which Islam preserves hearts and enables people to live together, is that we've always acknowledged ikhtilaf. And Sidi Ahmed Zarruq says that one of the most important things for a Muslim is to know the difference between khilaf and ikhtilaf, to know the difference between opposition and between difference. إِذَا أُخَالِفُكَ, I oppose you. But إِذَا اخْتَرِفُ مَعَكَ, if I differ with you about something, it's a different thing. And the Prophet said, اِخْتِرَافُ أُمَّتِي رَحْمَةً in al-Bayhaqi. And its meaning is sound, and many proofs for that. Irrespective of what the sanad of the hadith is, the meaning is sound. Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz said, it's a great mercy that اختلفت الصحابة من رحمة الله على هذه الأمة. اختلاف الصحابة is one of the great mercies for this ummah. So the difference of opinion is very important, to allow that. And that there's only one way of doing something is the worst thing that you can do to people. In fact, in the Maliki madhab, if people are following a qawl marjuh, but they've been on it for a long time and it becomes the amal, you don't correct it. You leave them on it. So, in other words, if you have a stronger proof, but they're following something, they've been doing it for a long time, but they have their proof for it, you don't try to force them to do what you think. You just leave them on it. And this is ma jara bihi al-amal, what the amal is. And there are many examples of that where we really have problems that are caused in our community. One of the things, people argue, for instance, about standing, getting up for people. And I don't want people to stand. I don't like it, and that's what I learned from my teachers, and that's the best thing. But in certain cultures, standing is part of their urf. If you go to certain places in Arabia, they get up for the people. If you don't get up, it's an insult. Now, there's these kind of guys that come in that are, mashallah, following the sunnah, exactly as the sunnah is. And they will be going to that majlis, and they'll purposely sit down. And then when people come in, they won't stand up. Now, Ibn Abdul Barr was asked about that, and others. And one of the things that he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تباغضوا ولا, sorry, Izz ibn Abdul Salam was asked about that. And he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تباغضوا ولا تقاطعوا ولا تدابروا. Don't hate one another, don't cut off one another, don't turn away from one another. So unity. That is a wajib. And he said the qiyam in some places is the urf now, and even though the salaf don't do it, if you didn't do it, it would create tabaghud. It would create like animosity and enmity in hearts. People would get angry at you. So he said, it's not even far to say that it's wajib in some places to stand. This is fiqh. This is fiqh. Is understanding. One of the great Maliki scholars from Baghdad, one of the Christian ministers of the Abbasids came into the majlis, and he stood up and astankarahu. The ulama that were in the gathering, they were upset about it. And when he left, he said, I noticed you all got upset because I stood up for this Christian minister. And they said, the Prophet ﷺ, taught us not to ta'zeem, and especially for Nasrani. And he said, the affairs of the Muslims is in this man's hands. And if I don't show him respect as a scholar, he's going to take that out on Muslims. Fiqh. This is understanding, tawazun. And this is what people have lost. So Imam al-Ghazali wrote this book. And the books that follow it are either summaries, like the Kimya Sa'ada is a Persian summary of the Ihya Ulumuddin, or Kitab al-Arba'in, which Imam Zayd is teaching you. He writes summaries of these things, khulasa, and his final summation is Ayyuhal Walad, which is a tiny little book. And this is basically, it's an amazing book, because he basically argues. A man asks him to give him really something that he can hold on to. And the book it's translated into English. You should all read it. O Youth, I think it's called. Walad, though, in spiritual tradition, is somebody who hasn't realized yet. So you could be 70 years old and be a walad. A walad is an immature, spiritually immature person, as opposed to a rajul. And women go under that category of rijal as well. It's because at a certain point it's ilm al-rijal is men and women. There are many women in ilm al-rijal. So Imam al-Ghazali writes the Ihya, and this book has an immense impact. And I just want to look at the structure of the book to help you understand the architecture and the importance of the architecture. The first thing that he tells us is that the Ihya is in 4 sections. They're called Arba'. Ruba' is a 4th, from Arba'a, which is 4, or Arbi'a. And he basically puts in each section 10 books. So altogether there are 40 books. And 40 is a sacred number. And Imam al-Ghazali there's definitely an element of sacred numerology in Islam. Numerology is very dangerous, obviously, as most of you know, because there's a type of madness that goes with numerology, and you can go insane with numerology. People become obsessed. 23 is an obsessive number for some people in the West, and then gambling is a lot about numbers and lucky numbers, and people become very obsessive about numerology. But undeniably, 7 is a sacred number. And in reality, all numbers are sacred in that they are part of revelation, that they come from God, our ability to know mathematics. And Allah says one of the reasons that He even gave us the heavens was that we would learn how to reckon and arithmetic. So arithmetic is part of Allah's intention for human beings, and immense good has come out of arithmetic, also immense bad. So harakan mutanatti'un, they perish who go too deeply into things. But 40 is, Musa is promised that he will meet God. He's given 40 days to prepare to meet God in the Qur'an. Tamam al-ribat 40 layla. Al-ribat, ribat is when you go to defend the lands of the Muslims at the borders, and the murabit is one of the great rewards you get for doing that, and there is a hadith that indicates that it's 40 days that you need to go out there to become a murabit, to get the maqam. And the murabit has a high maqam, the fire won't touch him, many things. So tamam al-ribat 40 yawman or layla, 40 yawman. And then that's obviously where you get in Jama'at Tabligh the idea of khuruj for 40 days, right? Because they go out for 40 days. Same idea. Man ashara qawman 40 yawman sara minhum. If you live with the people 40 days, you'll become like them. So 40 is an important number. And he tells us that in the introduction that he's writing this book in order to rectify what he sees as a death that has occurred in the real sciences of the religion. And he divides the sciences into 2 branches, mu'amalat and mukashafat. The mukashafat are things that are ineffable. But he will do something, and I mentioned this earlier, he will do something throughout the Ihya in that he weaves these hints of the mukashafat throughout the Ihya. In some ways, in the ocean of the Ihya, it's like the white whale that will appear every once in a while and then disappear. That's what he does. He shows the head and then it sinks back in. And he will titillate you by this. He wants to draw you in. And he will say many times, enough said. I could say more, but let's leave it at this. And he said, if you do what I'm telling you to do, you will see like I have seen. So he will tell you this. And there is arguably a secret narrative in the Ihya that if you study it long enough, that will begin to emerge. I mean, I think that could be argued, that the Ihya does not give its secrets without, in the same way, and not in the same way, but similarly, the Qur'an does not reveal itself without great أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا لا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم لا يمس إلا المطهرون. Only the purified will penetrate this book. Mas will they will be intimate with the book, because it's a same word that can be used for intimate relations with your spouse, that you will not be able to taste or experience this book without being purified. And this is what Imam al-Ghazali is arguing, that if you're willing to do this work, these things will begin to manifest. The Qur'an says that this book is like the stars, the Mawaqi' al-Najum. And Mawaqi' al-Najum in the tafsir are the places of the constellations. It's interesting because you know how many constellations there are? Anybody? Well, you have north and south, but altogether, astronomers, there's 88 official constellations. Now the 85th verse of the 85th surah in the Qur'an is Al-Buruj. It's the only time Buruj is really there. Al-Buruj, the constellations. And the first ayah is 3 words. Right? So it's 85th, first ayah. This is my little istinbat. It's just nukta. It's not, don't take this too far. But it's like little nukta. There's only 3 words in the first verse. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. The heavens have constellations. Allahu Akbar. So the Quran swears by the mawaqi' an-nujum, but also that means the positions of the verses in the Quran. Now we use وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ. By the heavens they are guided, by the stars. So the heavens up there are the guide for our outward journey in the land, to our destinations on land and sea. We use the stars. And even, and I mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning for those who've never heard this story. I was on a British Airways flight to England, and they have that little screen in front of you. It tells you where you are. And I saw the planes over Denver, Colorado. I almost passed out because I was coming from San Francisco going to London. So I ran to the stewardess. I said, we're way off course. And she's like completely panics and literally almost, I think, runs and goes to the telephone, calls the cabin, So she comes back and she says, no, it's okay. The captain said it's all right. So I go sit down. I'm wondering why we're going over Colorado. We should be over Alberta or something in Canada. And so a few minutes later she comes back and she says the captain would like to, this is before 9/11 when you could do these things. She said the captain would like to see you in the cabin. So I go up there and come in, and it's one of those nice big cabins where they had actually a seat. And he says, have a seat. So I sit down, and it was at nighttime. And he says to me, are you a pilot? And I said, no. He said, how'd you know we were off course? And I said, well, I know the Great Circle route to Mecca. You go over close to the North Pole, and that's the way generally they travel to England from San Francisco by the Great Circle. So when I saw you're over Colorado, I'm just wondering, like, what's going on? He said, no, that's true, because we actually have 2 routes. And he said, in the winter time, we go over the North Pole, but in the summertime, we go the Loxodromic route, which is a compass route. And he said, although it's longer, there's a jet stream that we get into, so we save time and fuel. So we actually get there faster with less fuel expended. And that's why we're going that way. And so then we had a conversation. And then I asked him, I said, listen, if you lost all the GPS and you lost your bearings, what would you do? And this is a true story. He turned out the lights in the cabin. The cabin went completely dark, and the stars all came out. And he just said, we've always got the stars. And that is the reality, that in the end, that's how we find our coordinates. It's celestial, by our outward journey and by our inward journey. So the mawaqi' an-nujum are the places of the verses, because the verses are nujum. And ashabi kan-nujum, my companions are like stars. So stars are the things that you guide. They're the lights in the darkness. And so these verses are the things that guide you. But just like the night sky needs constant observation to learn it. You have to go out, and if you go out initially it looks all jumbled. Just like people who look at the Qur'an who aren't used to the Qur'an, they think, what is this book? It's changing order all the time. It's talking about this and it's talking about that. It's jumbled. A lot of Western people, that's their response to the Qur'an. They don't feel that there's patterns. But the more you penetrate the Qur'an, the more the patterns emerge. Just like as you look up into the night sky for the first time, it's just a jumble of stars. There's no patterns. But then suddenly you start, oh, hey, look at that one. That was there last night. And now it's a little different. And if you went out your whole life, you would see, you could work out just like the ancients. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just study astronomy and learn from the people that went before you, just like a lot of what we can know about the Qur'an has already been done by the astronomers of the Qur'an, who are the mufassirun. They're the ones that went every night. I mean, they were all night with the Qur'an, reading it and thinking about it and reflecting on it, and all these patterns emerged. And that's why you have these great tafsirs like Fakhruddin al-Razi or Imam al-Biqa'i and many of them. Ibn Zubair, amazing book on Tanasub al-Ayat, how the ayat are all related to each other. So Imam al-Ghazali is basically, he tells us that you have the mukashafat, and these are things that we don't speak about, although he does speak about them. But he does in a way that is ambiguous and is only giving you a taste. And some of the isharat that show up in, I read an amazing ishara today from Sidi Ahmed Zarruq, who mentioned that Abu Abbas and Mursi said about يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءِ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ مَنْ يَشَاء إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ مَنْ يَشَاء الذُّكُورِ, that he gives some daughters. He said that's ibadah without the ilm. It's worship without knowledge. And then he gives some sons. He said that's knowledge without worship. And then he gives the two to some. يُزَوِّجُ. He gives them both ibadah and ilm. That's an ishara. It doesn't negate the outward of the meaning. Because if you negate the outward and say this is what it really means, you're a batini. But an ishara can come, these are insights that come out of the Qur'an. So Imam al-Ghazali says the second aspect of it is what he calls al-mu'amala, ilm al-mu'amala. And this is the behavior that is needed on your journey to God. He's saying that there is a behavior that you need to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's called al-mu'amala. And he said, this is the subject of my book. I am writing a book of mu'amala. I'm not writing a book of mukashafa, but what I'm telling you is if you practice this book of mu'amala, you will begin to taste the mukashafa. That's what he's arguing in this book. And so he divides it into four because he says that the mu'amala has a zahir and a batin. There's an outward aspects of the mu'amala and inward aspects of the mu'amala. The outward has also two, al-ibadat wal-adat. It has devotional practices and customary practices or habitual practices. Devotional practices like prayer and fasting and zakat and these things, and then habitual practices like eating and drinking, the marriage life, companionship, friends. These are all the outward. So he said the outward has two, ibadat, mu'amalat. That's the first 20 books. How does he begin it? He begins it with kitab al-ilm, because he says this is ghayat al-muhim, it's of the utmost importance in studying this knowledge. So he gives you the basis in the book of knowledge, and he tells you one of the problems with knowledge is that we have a crisis of understanding because meanings have been changed. Words no longer convey the meanings that they were intended to convey when they were given to us by the Prophet ﷺ or from the Qur'an. The central words that he is disputing are things like fiqh, which he says has been reduced to renting and menstrual cycles and buying and selling. He said that's not what fiqh meant. That's an aspect of fiqh, undeniably. But he's saying that is not the fiqh of the Sahaba. That's not the understanding. He said very few of the Sahaba were fuqaha. They gave this type of fatwa. But all of them were fuqaha of the religion. Because Allah arada bihim khayran. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the Sahih Hadith, Man yuridi Allahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din. The one that God wants for good, whoever God wants good for, whoever He wants good for, He gives him fiqh in the religion. Now, all of the Sahaba, God wanted good for them, or they wouldn't have been Sahaba. So they were all fuqaha. But he's saying they weren't all experts in Islamic Sharia. So that can't be the meaning of fiqh at that time. It's a deeper meaning. And this is why the faqih is the one who sees the reality of things. He sees beyond the outward appearances. In fact, the ancient Arabic word faqih was the one that could tell the pregnant sheep amongst the other sheep. So يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ is what the fuqaha do. But istinbat is to derive from istinbat is to find out what's in the batan, what's in the batin, what's in the meaning, the real inner meaning. So what he's saying is, you've killed fiqh. You've turned it into all these rituals and outward practices, and you've made it dry. And you yourselves are dry. And I know because I was one of you. I know exactly how you think. And you all admitted I was the best of you, and now I'm saying it was all the completely wrong path. Everything that I was doing them for the wrong reasons. And he calls these ulama ad-dunya, as opposed to ulama al-akhirah. He says the people that seek stature, the people that seek the outward trappings of this world are those people. And then he says ilm itself has changed, the meaning of ilm, because he said, Ibn Mas'ud said when Imam Omar died, the Caliph Omar, he said 9/10 of knowledge went. And they said, what? We still have all these fuqaha? He said, I'm not talking about that knowledge. I'm talking about al-ilmu billah, knowledge of Allah. So he said that was ilm. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء khashya. He says many ulama of the outward don't have any khashya. You will find, and Shaykh Muhammad al-Sharif can verify this for me because he went to Al-Azhar and he knows. You will find ulama that make jokes with the Qur'an. I've heard it myself. يُنَكِّتْ بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ. If they had any ounce of khashya or knew what the book of Allah was, they would never do that. But you ask them about ijara, you ask them about shuf'a, you ask them about hayd or istihada or nifas, they'll give you the fatwa. Ask them how many goats you owe if you have so many camels. They'll give you the fatwa, but they don't have khashya. So Allah says the ulama are the people of khashya, the people who have awe. And khashya is not khawf. An average person can have fear. A dog can have fear. You say al-kalb yakhafuni, but you don't say al-kalb yakhshani in Arabic. Because khashya is only with knowledge. So he is arguing, and then tawheed, he says you've reduced tawheed to a series of formulaic, dogmatic principles that you memorize by rote. Yajibu lillahi al-wujud, wal-qidam, wal-baqa. And you memorize these things, and that's tawheed. Or usul al-tawheed. Right? The usul al-arba'a. That's tawheed. Hada muwahid. Because he says Allah is one. He's saying that's not muwahid. That's not what that means. The muwahid is the one who doesn't see the asbab. Yubsir al-khaliqa fi al-marzuqi. It's the one that sees the Creator in the creation. وَيُبْصِرَ الرَّازِقَ فِي الْمَرْزُوقِ. And he sees the provider in the provision. So when he's eating, he sees where the provision comes from. That's tawheed. And that's why, what does he put in his book on tawheed? He puts with it tawakkul. Tawakkul. Trusting. Because when you know God, you trust God. When you have tawheed, you trust God. Look at the dua of the Prophet. وَمِنَ الْيَقِينِ مَا تُهَوِّنُ بِهِ عَلَيَّ مَصَائِبَ الدُّنْيَا. Give me from certainty what will make the tribulations of this world easy for me. So if you have yaqeen, if you have certainty, the tribulations of the world become easy. They're not difficult. But when you don't have certainty, every little thing, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. The human being was created in hala. When the child comes out of the womb, what's the first thing it does? What am I doing here? I want to go back. I want to go back into the womb. It was all warm in there. It was nice. There was a nice beat going. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. It was perfect temperature. It had like this amazing food hooked up. Everything it needed was there. Babies dream. They know, the fetus dreams now. They know that. They're in a whole world. We don't know what's going on in there. But they're very happy in there. And when they come out, they're like, this is a mistake. Right? Because it's halak. That's what it is. It's complete anxiety. And then they get pinched according to the hadith. Shaitan comes and, I got you. A new one. Can't wait. Get a little older. Wait till I start showing you my little tricks. Yeah, I'll have you dancing to my tune soon enough. So, anxiety is part of the human condition. The only thing that reduces anxiety, tranquility, is, according to this civilization, not this one here in Turkey, but increasingly, but according to our civilization, where most of it are coming from, is anxiolytics. Right? You take Valium and you take all these nice drugs that just calm you down and, everything, mood-altering drugs. I feel fine. Right? That's what they do. In fact, a lot of people in the West, they say if they start meditating, they have anxiety attacks. Seriously, from meditation. A lot of people, that's the state they're in. It's so bad that if they actually stop and just turn everything off and start just relaxing and breathing, they get anxiety attacks. I need to make a phone call. Where's my iPhone? Turn on the TV quick. Right? Because it's all outward stimulation that is putting them in these states where they don't have to think about anything. And so that state of anxiety that people find themselves in is only relieved by certainty. And that tawheed is what gives you that certainty. That everything that happens is from Allah. There's nothing to worry about. You're in good hands. The universe is in good hands. Everything is going according to plan. That doesn't mean that you don't change what's wrong and work in the world and try to do what you can, but you do it with that deep knowledge so that it doesn't destroy you. Because so many people out there working and struggling become debilitated, become crestfallen, become cynical. There's so many people that the world makes them cynical. I saw a man with a t-shirt that said, "Losing faith in humanity, one man at a time." That was his t-shirt. Losing faith in humanity, one person at a time. And that's their experience of the world. And so they become cynical. But if you have certainty and you know, جَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ, we made some of you a test for others. Allah made some of you a test for others. Family is a test. Right? Everybody knows that. You can nod. It's a big fitna, family. Brothers and sisters, sometimes fathers and mothers. They're a tribulation for people. But Allah says, will you show patience? Because they're there to teach you. They're there to learn. Your children are there to teach you patience. And if you have rahmah, part of rahmah is patience. If you have mercy, you're patient. So he says tawheed is misunderstood. And then he says that in the Kitab al-Ilm, he gives you what he says is the foundation of knowledge, the basis of knowledge. It is things that will prepare you for this immense journey that you're facing. And so he gives you this introduction. And then the next book is Kitab al-Aqaid. And the reason that he does the Kitab al-Aqaid that way is because he wants you to make sure that you have the foundation about God before you start this journey. You have to know who your Lord is. And then you have to know the basic tahara, asrar al-tahara. One of the things that, from the secrets of tahara, is the limbs that are heedless with God are the limbs primarily that we do wudu with. So 5 times a day, you do your wudu, or more. Murabat al-Hajj does wudu for people that have been there. Have you been to? Has anybody been to? Sidi Yahya's been to Tuwaymarat. Murabat al-Hajj does wudu every prayer, and if you watch him do wudu, you will realize that wudu is ibadah, it's devotion. Most people do wudu as a prerequisite to the prayer. They don't know that wudu is ibadah mustaqillah. It's independent worship. And you can do wudu as a ibadah, just to do wudu. You don't have to do it to do a prayer. And you can do wudu on wudu. Nurun ala nur. You can do wudu on wudu, which means that that it's not wudu itself. Because if you're in wudu, why do it again? If it wasn't something in and of itself. Sidi Ahmed Zarruq says, قدر حضورك في الصلاة على قدر حضورك في الوضوء. The degree of your presence in the prayer is dependent upon the degree of your presence in your wudu. The more present you are in wudu, the more present you are in your prayer. Wudu, we have a nice word in English, by the way. It's not ablution. Ablution I don't like. I don't like the sound of it. But there is an older term called lustrations, which is actually ritual washing. And if you look at the word lustrations, it has the identical meaning of the word wudu. Because wata'a is to make bright. And lustrations is from luster. It's what gives you brightness. So wudu is what makes you bright. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, today the Imam was talking about wujuhun yawma idin muswaddah, that faces will be blackened. And he said, I just heard him in Turkish say, Nuri Muhammad mahroom. They're deprived of the light of the Prophet ﷺ. So the wudu is how the Prophet knows his ummah. He sees the whiteness, the brightness, not necessarily like whiteness of skin, but the brightness of skin. And that came from the lustrations that they did in this life. So he gives you the secrets of wudu, of tahara. And then one of the things that Sidi Ahmed Zarruq says about ghusl is that when Allah gave as one of the blessings of human beings the act of intimacy with their spouse. And the act of intimacy is, he says that because he gives it's a culmination of complete tranquility and istighraq, like they are completely annihilated in that state. And he said because it's for them, he gives them ghusl immediately after, which is to come back to God. So it's to come back and to remember that it was God that gave you that, if you forgot. For the highest, like in the Fusus, he mentions that it is actually for the arifin one of the highest dhikrs, to be in a state of intimacy. Because they see it on a completely other level. It's not a shahwa. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, that Imam al-Nawawi in the hadith about fi bud'i ahadikum ajr, in your private parts is a reward. The Imam al-Nawawi says that al-jima'u is that intimacy is beloved to the prophets, that they actually love that. And Imam al-Nawawi says, of all the shahawat, it's the only one that does not harden the heart. Zina will harden the heart. Na'udhu billah. But halal intimacy is the only shahwa that will not harden the heart. The more that you do it, it actually softens the heart. And you can see, like I've seen some of the youth that are overzealous and very hard-hearted in their religion, they need to get married. I mean literally, because they need to have their hearts softened with the intimacy of halal mates and things like that. So he gives you that asrar al-tahara, and then kitab asrar al-salat, the secrets of the prayer. And the prayer, Imam al-Akhbari in his beautiful little treatise on Maliki fiqh has a section where he talks about the light in the prayer, that there is a vast light in your prayer, and don't let shaitan play with you in your prayer and take that light away from you. That there is a light that will illuminate your heart in the prayer. And then he gives you the asrar of zakat, and the asrar of fasting, the mysteries or secrets of fasting, the mysteries or secrets of hajj. And these are all to infuse these rituals with real meaning. Because people, when they understand these meanings, it will give them more desire to do them. Because one of the problems with a lot of Muslims is these become rituals that don't have an effect on them. And then he gives you the adab tilawat al-Qur'an, the comportments or courtesies of recitation of Qur'an. And Qur'an is central, and we're going to get into that inshallah together, looking at Imam al-Ghazali's theory of the Qur'an. But the Qur'an is central to Imam al-Ghazali's teaching. And he puts it here with Kitab al-Adhkar with Da'wat is the next book, the book of Adhkar and Da'wat, the prayers and the litanies that one does, and the Tartib, and then the book of Tartib al-Awrad fir Awqat is getting your times for doing your awrad, because this is very important, is the practice. You have to have a practice. And one of the things that many Muslims, they say, oh, I just never really get anything out of the prayer, and I don't feel anything when I pray, and this. Well, it's because they're not doing anything to prepare for that. That if you're not doing practices to prepare for that, then that's a problem, because you have to learn how to empty your mind, which is called takhliya, the emptying of the mind. Because the mind is fettered by nature. The mind is disquieted. It's disturbed. And meditation and dhikr will still the mind. Sakina will give the mind sakina and tranquility. And if you don't do that as a practice on a regular basis, then when the time comes, and one of the amazing things about the prayer is all you have to do is do Allahu Akbar, and suddenly, like, things will happen, come to people that, like, where did that come from? Why am I thinking about that? They weren't thinking about anything, but right as they said Allahu Akbar, that bill that I have to pay, or I need to go there, and I better call so-and-so, and if I don't do that, all those things flood the mind, because the mind is untrained. People haven't done the work on the mind. And so, those are the 10 books that he gives. And then in the Ruba al-Adat, it's also got 10 books. What time is it? What's that? 15 more minutes? Okay. So in the book of Adat, he begins with the adab of eating. And this is very important to Imam al-Ghazali. One of my teachers, Shaykh Bashir al-Shaqfa, great scholar in the Emirates. He lives in Al-Ain. I mean, really great scholar, and a scholar of spiritual insight, like ilham. I mean, whenever I have visited him, I always bring a kunnash, a notebook, and end up writing about half of everything he says, because he just speaks pearls. But he wrote a book on the zakat of the Maliki madhab, like the book of halal food. And he wrote an incredible introduction about the importance of food in our religion. And we tend to forget this. So here's a little pitch for saffron. We tend to forget the importance of halal and good food. Because the Qur'an talks about halal and tayyib. It's halal, but it's also tayyib. And in Surah Al-Kahf, he tells him to go find the purest food, azka, the purest food. He didn't just say, go find some food for us. He said, go find pure food. And so the idea of eating pure food is very important. But the adab of eating, the ritual that goes with food is very important. Traditionally, Muslims did not eat and walk. Now people eat on the run. We have fast food. And then we have slow digestion. Right? And then there's a whole billion-dollar industry of antacids for people out there, because their digestions are so shot, because they eat. First of all, if you don't say Bismillah or some type of grace, if you don't, and I really think like in America they stopped saying grace. They used to say grace, and some people still do, but a lot of people don't. But when people stop saying grace, the barakah of the food is gone. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if you don't mention God's name over food, shaitan eats with you. And the hadith of the shaitan who's really fat, and he meets the shaitan who's skinny. And the fat one says, "What's wrong with you? You look really bad." And he said, "I've got a really bad assignment." He said, "What's up?" He said, "Every time he eats, he says, 'Bismillah, I'm starving to death.' And every time he sleeps, he says his prayers, and I'm not getting any sleep, you know." So his shaitan is getting weaker and weaker and weaker because this person is in a spiritual state. He says, "Oh, you poor guy, I've got a great," he eats, never mentions God, I eat all I want. When he goes to sleep, he doesn't do anything, I get good rest. So his shaitan was really strong. So the more heedless you are, the stronger your shaitan gets. And the more present you are, the weaker your shaitan gets, until it stops influencing you. And that shaitan, obviously, all those negative things, those negative impulses, because that's what shaitan in the end is. It's just the negativity in the world that is working and flows in our blood, according to the Prophet. He said the shaitan flows in our blood. So the importance of the adab of food, of eating good food, of healthy food, and eating then not too much, because if you overeat, it slows you down. It slows your mentation down. You can't think. Al-bitnatu tudhib al-fitna. That big stomachs will cause the intellect to diminish. So the more you eat, and that's spiritual intellect. Don't think that, you can be fat and be a genius. Henry Kissinger's example of that. You can be very hefty and be very smart. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about spiritual intelligence. It will dull your spiritual intelligence. And that's why one of the foundational aspects of Abu Madyan's path is ju'a. The way of the abdal is ju'a. It's hunger and sahar, getting up at night. And samt and uzra. Those are the four things of the abdal. Silence, seclusion, hunger, and getting up at night. So that's a very important aspect, and that begins his book of the adat, or the norms and behavioral aspects of the religion, and then the nikah, which is marriage, and then kitab ahkam al-kasb, livelihood. If you're going to get married, you have to earn a livelihood, and so that's important. And then the book of halal and haram, because if you're going to go out into the world, you better know what's halal and haram. You see, the architecture of this book is really quite extraordinary. I mean, it's really amazing how he did this. And then Kitab Adab al-Sahba. When you go out in the world, you're going to have friends and companions, so you better know how to be with people. When mu'ashara, ma' asnaf al-khalq, how to live with different types of people. There are different types of people in the world. There's good people, there's bad people. There's people that are shar la budda minhu. They're bad, but you have to deal with them. Right? So all of these aspects are out in the world. Kitab al-Uzla. And then the idea of seclusion and spending time with you and your Lord. You have to have time for yourself and for your Lord. And then Kitab Adab al-Safar, the journey. Now this also has, Safar is one of the great metaphors of the spiritual path. The whole world is a metaphor. Everything in the world is a metaphor. And one of the great metaphors is traveling, because we're all on a journey. We came into the world on a journey. And the world itself is a journey. Your breaths are like your steps. Your days are like the miles. Your weeks are like the farasikh, the 4 miles. And then your months are like the marhala, and then your years, right? You go on this journey. So the longer it gets, and then finally the arrival to the destination is your death. Now, just like in this world, when you go on a journey, you have to have provision. Tazawwadu. Right? You have to get provision. So you get your provision. And then you have to have like the map of where you're going. You have to know where you're going. You have to have the passport and visa. You need passport and visa, right? Sahih, in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, Salman al-Farisi said, no one enters paradise without a passport and a visa. Now, they didn't even have passports in those days. They didn't call them jawaz. Jawaz is a later, but he said, لا يدخل الجنة أحد إلا بجواز من الله مكتوب فيه ادخلوها بسلام آمنين. the visa says, enter my paradise safe and sound. Now also when you go now on travel, you get scanned. Seriously. According to the sound hadith, the kalalib will scan you on the sirat. Before you go into paradise, you have to get scanned. And it checks all your sins. So just like you have scanners now, like you have scanners that will see if there's a gun, or you go to the hospital and they have scanners that will see if there's a tumor or something. These scanners see if there's arrogance. The Prophet said it's mu'allaqatun ma'muratun. It's suspended and programmed. Suspended and programmed. And it will literally scan the person on the sirat. And if it sees something, it has makhalib. It has like and he said it's made of hadid, it's iron. And it latches on to the person who's got sins and pulls them. If there's good, the soul will struggle against it. And the Prophet ﷺ said some of them will be makdush, they get flesh ripped from them that will heal by the time they get packed. So it doesn't get them. And other ones it pulls them and throws them out because they're not ready to go in. Those are called the jahannamiyun. They have to go to get like pasteurized. To get purified because they didn't do the work here. So it's all, the safar is very important. Safiru tasahhu. Travel on this journey and become well, spiritually well. So that's the spiritual journey. Sihu tasihhu. Siyahatu ummati al-jihad. The tourism of my ummah. I mean, siyaha didn't technically mean tourism, but it's the modern word for tourism. The tourism of my ummah is jihad. That's the siyaha, the traveling in the earth of my ummah is to go and do jihad. And first of all, jihad of nafs. That's the real jihad, which is not to negate the other jihad. And we have to believe in that. It's not how it's being defined today as far as I believe, but jihad is part of our religion. Defending the lands of the Muslims is a sacred duty, binding on Muslims. How and when you do that is another matter. And then he has the book of Sama', which is audition, sacred listening. And people say, oh, a'udhu billah, the bid'ah, ma yajuz. Really, people say that. Imam Shatibi mentions in his book that a group of people, busybodies, came to Omar and they said, we have a problem with our imam. He said, what's the problem? He said, every time he finishes praying, he sings. So Omar gets up, gets his durra. He had a little stick. He goes, and they take him to this imam. He meets him. He says, لَقَدْ بَلَغَنِي عَنْكَ أَمْرٌ سَأَنِي. I heard something really troubled me about you. قُلْ لِي يَا أَمِيرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Tell me, أَعِينُكَ عَلَى نَفْسِي. I'll help you. Deal with me. And he's a good man. And he said, بَلَغَنِي أَنَّكَ كُلَّمَا صَلَيْتَ غَنَّيْتَ. I heard every time you pray, you sing. So he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, innaha ibatun a'idhu biha nafsi. It's just a little exhortation I like to remind myself with. So he sang a little qasida. So Sayyidina Umar says, Asma'ni, let me hear it. In kana hasanan usharikuka. If it's good, I'll join you. He said, Idha kana sharran nahituka anhu. But if it's bad, I'm going to tell you not to do it. He said, and then he sang his little qasida, and the matla, the first line was, Nafsu la kunti wa la kana al-hawa. Raqibi faraqib al-mawla wa khafi wahrabi. Oh my nafs, my ego, you don't exist. And your hawa doesn't exist. So, be present with your Lord and have awe and have this immensity. And Omar said, MashaAllah, and he sang it with him. And then he said, هَكَذَا فَلْيُغَنِّ مَنْ غَنَّى. This is the way whoever sings should sing. Amr ibn al-Aqwa in Sahih Muslim sang for the Sahaba. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Rahimakallah ya Amr. May Allah have mercy on you, Ya Amr. In Anjasha, Rifqan bil Qawarir, Ya Anjasha, Rifqan bil Qawarir. He used to sing. He was a hadi. You know, the Hadi. In fact, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya has a book, Hadi al-Arwah ila Bilad al-Afrah. The singer, Hadi al-Arwah, the singer to the souls, to encourage them to get to the land of joy. That's the title of his book. So this idea, haram ya akhi, ghina is haram. Where did you get that? Show me where. Where? Where did you get that? تفترون على الله الكذب. You know, you're just telling lies on God. Don't leave people alone. Ibn Arabi actually said, لا يقول بالسماع اليوم مسلمون. A Muslim will not say they should do sama' today. And he said, أهل السماع اليوم أهل البطالة وسماعهم لعب ولهو. He said the people of sama' today are the people of batala, like just empty vacuity. And then he said that it's just games and play for them. Sidi Ahmed Zarruq says, هذا يقول هذا الكلام من نفسه لنفسه. He's saying that from his own state about himself. Like if he goes and hears them sing things like, نحن في روضة رسول حضور طالبين الرضا وحسن قبولي. We're in your presence, O Messenger of God, in a complete state of wakefulness. For Ibn Arabi, seeing them singing that, he's saying they're just playing. They're not in that state. They're just saying these things. And that's the truth about sama' for most people. They sing these songs, and the songs have all these meanings, but they don't have they don't affect those people like the people that wrote them or the people that sang them early. But does that mean that they're not allowed to sing them? For tasliyah, for tarwih al-qulub? No, they can do that, just like you were singing a qasida earlier. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's sama'. And many of the people, the great scholars, permitted it. And then wajd is ecstasy. And then kitab al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy an al-munkar. I would like to talk about that, the hisbah, because it's very important. But because time is running out. Kitab adab al-ma'isha wa akhlaq al-nubuwah. And then the adab of livelihood, and then finally akhlaq al-nubuwah. He finishes at book 20, the heart of the Ihya, and I think you're doing that with Imam Tahir. The heart of the book is the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. He makes that the midpoint of the book, because the Prophet is the center of all of this. He's the heart. And then he begins the second section, inshallah I'll talk about that, because I would like to talk about Amr bin Ma'ruf and Nahi an al-Munkar. I'll just finish. I wanted to do a little bit of the Munfarija. The Munfarija is a qasida that was written by Ibn Nahwi, one of the great scholars, great poets, and a scholar. This poem was written for tafrij al-kurub, to get rid of anxieties and tribulations. And interestingly enough, it's actually written, and inshallah we'll see it if we get to go into the throne room of the Ottomans at the Topkapi. The poem is written around the throne room of the Caliph, this poem. And this poem is considered mujarrab. It's been tried and tested many, many times for getting rid of kurub. The great scholar, Shaykh al-Islam. And when you say Shaykh al-Islam, who do you mean first and foremost, primarily? Shaykh Muhammad. Khalas. Traditionally, if you said Shaykh al-Islam, everybody knew it was Zakaria al-Ansari. Everybody. There are other Shuyukh al-Islam, and Ibn Taymiyyah, by many scholars, considered him a Shaykh min Shuyukh al-Islam. Now he's become Shaykh al-Islam, as if he's the only one that ever existed. But he's a muhtarifi, he's a scholar. There's a lot of difference of opinion about him, like Ibn Arabi, and it's very fitting that the great Sufi scholar Ibn Arabi is a lot of ikhtilaf about him. Ibn Taymiyyah said, I benefited greatly from his books. He says it in the Fatawa. Ibn Arabi has amazing things in his books that you won't find anywhere else. but he said, I benefited greatly from his books, especially from the Futuhat al-Makkiyah. But he said, but when I read the Fusus, I saw the kufr of the man. And then he goes on and attacks him. Now, Ibn Arab, anyway, that's a whole other story. I don't want to go there. So this book, this qasida is called Al-Munfarija, which is infiraj. It's getting free from this. It's very beautiful in Arabic, the poem. It's written in a bahar that Al-Khalil did not. It's the 16th bahar. It's called Al-Khabab. And it's Al-Akhfash is the one who identified it. The bahar is basically, for people that are studying Arabic or arud, it's fa'ilun, 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 fa'ilun. So, اشتدي أزمة تنفرجي اشتدي أزمة تنفرجي فاعل فاعل فاعل. That's the way it works. Khabab is fast, it's quick, so it's because it's a quick, it moves very fast. But he begins it by saying اشتدي أزمة تنفرجي, get worse, O crises, so you can get better. قد آذن ليلك بالبلج, your night has declared the coming of the morning. And one of the isti'arat of crises is the coming of the dawn, because they say the ashaddu dhulam qabla al-fajr. The darkest time of the night is right before fajr. And so when things get very bleak, it means that the faraj is coming. And intidhar al-faraj ibadah, to wait for Allah's opening, is a type of worship. It's a devotional practice to wait for Allah's opening. And the ummah is in a time of real tribulation. Like we're in Turkey right now. There's refugees on the border from Syria right now. Good people that are really suffering. There's suffering going on right across the way in Libya. Horrible things happening. There's, Yemen is a mess. Egypt's been through incredible tribulation. Iraq, hadith wala haraj. Afghanistan, Chechnya. I mean, there's just so many places where the Muslims are suffering, and other peoples as well. But I mean, our ummah has particularly been really hard hit of late. And there were many things that people used to do that they don't do anymore. But during these times, they used to get together and do khatam. They would do khatam al-Bukhari, khatam al-Shifa al-Qad'iyad. They would recite al-Munfarija. They would recite dua al-Nasiri if you were in North Africa or West Africa. And there are a lot of things people did. And people now, it's just, these things happen and people don't really do anything. They just kind of moan about it. But in the end, it's all in the hands of Allah. So this is, azma is shidda, it's a crisis, it's difficulty. And tanfariji means to be removed, tankashifi. Adhana is, the balaj is the ishraq, it's the light that comes at the dawn. And there are many verses in the Qur'an about this. La tayasu min ruhillah, don't despair from the grace of Allah. Innahu la yayasu min ruhillah illa al-qawm al-kafirin. Only the people of disbelief will ever despair from the grace of God. And قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Say to the believers who have been extravagant with themselves, in other words, they've oppressed themselves or wronged themselves. Allah says, ثُمَّ أَرَثْنَا الْكِتَابَ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَيْنَا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. And then we gave this book to those whom we have chosen from amongst our servants. And among them are those who oppress themselves, the people of ma'asiyah. These are the musrifun ala anfusihim. But they're still from the chosen if they believe and if they don't deny the prophets. They're still from the people of istifa. And that's what Allah is saying here. La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Don't despair, no matter how bad you have become. Don't despair. Because you can get to a point in dunya where everybody rejects you. That's the nature of dunya. Somebody can become so degraded in this world that everybody rejects them. But Allah will never reject His servant if he turns to Him. Ever. That door is always open. And so, You know, وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. The only people that despair from the mercy of their Lord are people who are astray. And then Allah says that He will test us with fear and hunger and deficiency in wealth and selves and fruits. So give good news to the people of patience. And patience is there are 4 levels of patience. You know, you have to have a sabru ala ta'a, to be patient with ta'a, you know, and sabru an al-ma'asi, to be patient with avoiding the ma'asiyah. And then also you have to have patience with the shada'id, you know, patience with, this is rida, contentment. And the Prophet ﷺ said that al-qana'atu kanzun la yafna, contentment is a treasure that's never exhausted. Being content and accepting the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever happens. And then also patience in blessings, by using them, you know, for the right things. So being patient is very important. And so that's how he begins the qasida. اشتدي أزمة تنفرجي قد آذن ليلك بالبلج. So he doesn't really mean get worse, but he's saying that when things get really bad, expect the faraj. And Sahaba used to say that whenever we were in a state of imbisat, we had trepidation because we knew difficulties were coming after it. But whenever we were in a state of difficulty, we felt really good because we knew things were good. It was going to get better after. So it's a different way of looking at things. I remember once, and I'll conclude with this, one of the Mauritanian people, beautiful man, the father of Mukhtar Dambala, he's one of the scholars from Mauritania. But his father is a Shaykh from the Hawb. And we were in this thing, there were these flies. And he asked me, do you have flies in America? And I said, we have flies, but in the area I am, I hardly ever see flies. You know, there's no flies where I am. And he said, أعوذ بالله استعجال النعمة. He just thought that was a bad sign. Like dunya should have flies. Because, you know, if it's too much like Jannah here, it might be all you get. Alhamdulillah. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد صلاة تنجينا بها من جميع الآفات وتقضي لنا بها جميع الحاجات وتطهرنا من جميع الآفات. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها وقوت الأرواح وغذائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Oh yeah. Her name is Madhavik. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate and also welcome into the Ummah our sister Madhavik here. Madhavik, could you stand up so people know you? Thank you. She embraced Islam today with us. So Shaykh Abdullah Al-Qadi and myself, and she is with Aqil and his family. She came here from Dubai, and she's originally from Philippines, but she read the Qur'an and read the Sirah of the Prophet ﷺ and wanted to become Muslim. So she said Shahada today. So the sisters just welcome her, inshallah, and marhaban, welcome. Allahu Akbar. The Prophet ﷺ said, جَدِّدُوا إِيمَانَكُمْ بِقَوْلِكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ مُحَمَّدٌ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. Renew your faith by saying, لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ مُحَمَّدٌ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. So it's a good thing to renew your faith. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan.